We got a cool little project today. I am doing a single lead, which is basically just a hot and a ground. So this is just wired as a full humbucker. This came out of a red Yamaha RGZ820R, which is basically the same thing as that Blues Saraceno Plaid guitar that we've seen for years. And these are the original Dimarzios that were co-made with Yamaha for Blues Saraceno specifically. So these are very special pickups. I mean, you can't buy them. They're not even a Dimarzio type of pickup. Maybe they are, but I mean, I doubt that Dimarzio would have ever made them like this. So it was basically made for that particular guitar. And these are some of the best sounding pickups I've ever heard. They really just are incredible. So if you like his tone from the Plaid album, that's what these things sound like. So anyways, so these are the original pickups. But the problem is the way he just played his guitar, and he just never did any single coil splits for these type of things. But I do, and I like to have that type of extra tone. So what I'm going to do is I had to remove the outer tape from this particular pickup. I'm just showing you this before and after. So this is what it looks like. So you can't see the exposed wires, but if you look really closely in there, you can see that there are red and whites and all that stuff. The challenge with this specifically is that there's just two sets of red and whites. So we're going to have to identify which one is which, and then we're going to have to actually come back once we remove all that kind of stuff, and we're going to have to tie it in with this kind of stuff, which is original, pickup wire. So we can choose what kind of configuration we want. Sorry about the gross nail and stuff like that, but I use it for a tool. This is the traditional red, green, white, black, and then bare wire. So we're going to use this. We're going to solder those original wires, so we have to know which ones we are. But if you're going to do this type of thing, you need to pick a color code, say for Seymour Duncan or for Dimarzio. Don't get them confused and stuff because they are completely different. But be very careful which ones you go for because you're going to have to re-identify them. So we're going to solder these leads to the original leads that are on here. So what I ended up doing was I took the film, which is like, it literally looks like, it looks like cassette tape. That's what it actually feels exactly like. But this is the sticky part outside, and it has that kind of a, like on the one side texture, it's got like a kind of a, I don't know, it looks like braids. But after you remove that, then you still have a lot of wax that apparently, I guess this thing was dipped in. And you have to scrape that away, and then you can remove this through the top. And then once you've got that, you can see we have access to that. So it's not always going to be the easiest project for novices if you're not good at soldering, or if you're unfamiliar with how to get into this kind of stuff. I would probably recommend that you don't do this, especially with a pair of pickups that you really care for, cherish. You may want to take it to a pro that knows how to do this. But I've done this already on a mod. I already have a guitar that I was able to do this successfully. So basically what they did is they tucked these wires. We have to use something really kind of gentle. This doesn't have any point to it. See if I can get in there and just kind of, without smashing anything, just try to pull that wire out of there. And see that? Check that out. So pull the other side out. Look at that. Okay. So now you can see the mysterious wires that were tucked in there. We have two blacks tied together, and we have another set here. These are also tucked in. Sorry about that. Gonna bump the camera there. Just be very careful what you're tugging on and stuff like that. Pun intended. But there's a lot of wax in here, so it's going to be kind of holding things. So that's why I'm using a blunt, not something that's going to sharpen like a flathead or something like that. So, but if you can kind of just be careful about removing some of the wax, you can get to where all of the leads are, and then you can separate them. And the grounds are common. And then we've got that main ground here. If we got a red here, it's just stuck on there. But yeah, I will say be very careful, because if this gets to a point where you start ripping out the cables, you just destroyed the pickup. So you'd have to really know what you're doing to get that. But once you can identify where both the start and the ends are, then you can actually solder this with the new leads. And as soon as I figure this out, I'll start the camera again because it's just messing around. But that's where they're tucked away. So if you can't see the leads, they're actually back in there. But as you can see from here, they don't really have that typical, red, green, white, black configuration. These are just soldered together. So we just got to figure that out. Once I figure it out, I'll show you guys. Okay, so we want to go ahead and I made this little cheat sheet for myself just so I can keep everything together. And even though this is black and white, this is the Seymour Duncan configuration, and I just basically wrote it down as you can see it here. So the north start right here is the black wire, the north finish is the white wire, then the next one is the south finish, which is the red wire, this color, and then the green is the south start. Now, what we have to do is we have to figure out, even though that this is just pointing in this direction for the sake of the diagram, for the the pickup codes you can find online, this needs to be stated that when you pull out humbuckers, they usually have the slugs facing each other like this. Now, one of the things you can do with nondescript pickups is they don't really tell you, there's no model numbers on them, so you don't know where they came from, so you don't know which wires go to what. But you also don't know which ones are south and north coils. This is extremely important for polarity reasons. So let me explain how this works. So it's a little bit strange. The first time I use this, it can be a little bit confusing to everybody, and especially it's just like if it's glossed over really quick. But north is basically, the north pole is actually a south magnet. So what happens is this needle right here, the red, is supposed to be aiming towards the North Pole, or true north, or magnetic north, or whatever you want to call it. But the idea of this is that when you put it up to a pickup, okay, you would go like this, and since it's facing up, you would think, sometimes your reaction would just be to think, oh, this is the north magnet, because this one's on top, okay, and the slugs are out here. Well, the orientation of the pickup is actually like this, okay? Now, since the red is pointing towards this, okay, this particular pickup, north faces south. So this is the south pickup. That's the south magnet. So when I flip it over, this is the north magnet, okay? So it's a little bit screwy, but if you were facing in a different direction, you know what I mean, say something like this, if I hold this up like this, you're thinking, well, up is north, and that's, this direction, like this, but I can put it in this orientation, and then you're thinking that's not north. I'm just letting you know that it can be confusing depending on what kind of a tool you use, but I got this at Walmart for like $5. But essentially, it does show you the same thing. So the slugs on this, okay, are north, but you see how the wires are coming out on this side, okay? So let's see when we use this other pickup for an example. Put it over this side, and it's the same kind of configuration. So let's see what this is. Okay, so what is it? This is the north magnet, okay? This is a south magnet, because north points to south, or is attracted to south. Okay, that's just how the attraction works. So these pickups are basically the same, okay? So no matter what, the slug is the north. So these are both considered north and south pickups. So what happens is, the reason that some pickups will go in the configuration where the wire will be on this side going into the body of the guitar, and then the wire on this side will be going into the body of the guitar, they're reversed like this, okay? So the idea here is, and this is an interesting one that I'm still trying to scientifically figure out, is what causes the hum cancellation, because I've seen if you have north and south, they will cancel each other out. But these would be north magnets. So if we actually did like a 5-way switch, which I'm modding this to be, I can do a 5-way switch where it's going to be in position 1 is going to be the bridge, full. Then the position 2 is going to be inside coils, okay? And then position 3 will be outside coils. Position 4 will be, I think it's just the I think it's series or parallel, something like that. One of the, it just depends on how I actually wire it, but they have different configurations for these. But there's a couple of different things, and then position 5 would just be full on this. So they can do a couple of different things with that. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm doing a more simple 5-way, which is actually going to give me 7 positions. So what I'm going to end up doing is the 5-way is going to give me the first position, which is full for bridge. Second position will be inside coils. Third position will be outside coils. Fourth position will be both coils but in parallel instead of series. That gives it kind of a dual humbucker type of sound. And then fifth position will be the full humbucker. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the series link for both of these pickups and I'm going to hook it up to a push-pull. So when I pull the switch, no matter what position I'm in, even if I'm in position 1, I actually can get just the one single coil. And then if I put it in position 5, I can pop that up and then I can get this particular coil. So I can actually still get the single coils from that particular thing. And I could have done that with a 3-way switch and then a push-pull, and that would have given me 5 positions. But anyways, so that's the configuration I'm going out with. But I did want to let you know that that's how you can figure out why these will orientate that particular way. And sometimes you'll get it like this, and they'll orientate that. Another argument for certain types of pickups and which ones are which is when you see this, okay, like Dimarzio does. It's like which is which. So how would you orientate this inside the body, okay? And so you would look at it like this, okay? That's the north coil. South is pointing. Excuse me. Excuse me. But that's the south coil and that's the north coil. So you can see the Dimarzio logos like this. So this would typically be a bridge pickup. Okay, but if you had 2 of these pickups and you wanted to line them side by side, you would take this one for the neck pickup and you would flip it like this, and this would be upside down. But those would be, if you had just a humbucker setup, that's how you would have to set those 2 up. So, anyways, a little bit of a tip. I am not an expert at the polarities of these things. I'm still, I've tried to figure this stuff out and give myself as much scientific information as I can, but realistically, it's just trial and error. So when you do this kind of stuff, write it down. Make sure you get some clear instructions on how you're gonna go with this for this particular modification. Because when we solder these wires together, we're gonna stick with this particular configuration, so we have proof that when we actually get this, it's wired up properly. So I'll show you the next step here. So I thought we'd do a test real quick. We're going to set this thing to 20K, and we're going to put the black to ground, and we're going to see what the resistance is. All right, so we're right at 16.5 for the most part, or 15.5, I'm sorry. So this is without me doing any modifications to the pickup at all. That's your resistance. So I've got my thumb on there. Let me see if I can just take it off and then... Okay, so like I said, it's about 15.5. Goes up a little bit and goes down a bit. Let's see if I can keep this on there without actually physically touching it. Not making the greatest connection. I don't have any alligated clips on here, so I can see if I can do that. Okay, without me touching it to there. So yeah, like I said, that's a pretty consistent number. I wanted to do this right before I actually did the modifications to make sure that I'm not losing anything. But yeah, it's pretty much hovering about that, but that might be just a connection to just me touching it a little bit. But now we know what that is. So we're going to write that result down for, this is the bridge, because the color of this is silver, which I was lucky because I could have screwed these up. If you ever pull these things out and see how this one's silver and this one's kind of like a bronze or a copper color, this one's the neck pickup, this one's the bridge pickup. So that's the only thing that really separated the two from really being different from each other. So be that as it may, that's how we know. So that's what we did. So we're going to write our findings down on the bridge and mark that for later use. Make sure that we don't, when we solder all these things together, it's about 15.59 total. All right. So we'll put that down there for bridge. And then when we split the coils, we should be able to get a different result. It's about basically half of that. So, and if it's not half, we can choose which is the stronger output of the single coil that we can choose for doing the split, so you can get the particular tone that you're going for. So make sure you do that before you start doing this mod. Didn't think I would need to actually do this because I thought they would be fairly similar as far as the outputs and everything like that, but no, they are not even close. So this pickup, which is the neck pickup, go ahead and put this to the ground. If there's a short, or maybe there's something wrong, but look at the difference in the output of that pickup. It's only 9 compared to the other one, which was like 15.59. Sheesh, that's a huge leap. So hopefully I didn't screw something up with this when I pulled it off, because obviously now that I'm, pulling it apart and everything like that, that's it could have gotten screwed up. Hopefully that didn't happen. I don't see any problems with leads or anything like that. I'll test the wires individually, make sure that the coils are good, but I should have done that before, just as a tip. Test this before you start pulling this stuff off, just so you confirm nothing happened when you actually did take that stuff off. But there it is. Okay. So once I test the individual coils, if one of the 2 sets of wires is dead, then I know if something happened and I will be very upset. But all I did was just do the same procedure. I just pulled this wire out. I don't see anything disconnected, but we shall see. Now that I got the cable separated, let's go ahead and test these coils right here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That is confirmation. Yeah. All right. 459 basically times 2 is about 9. So that's wild. This pickup is literally half the output of that other pickup. Boy, it doesn't sound like that, but I'll tell you, that's kind of a cool look into what Blues Saraceno did with his pickups. Just to see what those parallel axis would compare to as far as output. This is definitely substantially different. I don't know what the weight is. Excuse me. As far as the wraps and everything like that. But yeah, there you go. So this one is half the output. The other one's 15. This one was 9.1, something like that. And we'll put it back together, see what it sounds like. It's going to be a little irrelevant for some of you guys just because of the fact that it doesn't make sense because it's black on black. But this right here, you see I made like a little tiny mark right there, 1 dash, okay? Now if you looked at it under the light, you can see that there's like 2 little dashes there. And then on the next black cable, it's a little bit hard. You can see it maybe like this, just a reflection of it. You can see there's a couple of dashes, and then on that red, you got 4 lines. That's just me making a little bit overkill, but what I ended up doing was just using this as like 1 dash is that color, 2, 3, and 4, just in case I pull these things apart and they don't look the same. But it's pretty obvious which cables are coming from which pickup. But I will say this, be very careful. Don't remove the wrapping from around the actual, the copper that's underneath this. I just wrapped around from this to expose it. But don't go yanking on these cables, because if you do that, and I'm not going to be responsible for replacing these pickups. If you wanted to, you could always get a cheap guitar, practice this hack on first to see if you could actually do it. And your soldering skills are going to be on you. I'm not the cleanest in the world. It's very difficult to sit there and get these things to bind together and then also have a sleeve on them. So I've got, these guys, which are, heat But the problem with this, the heat shrink, is that you can't just put all of the cables together. They always have to be separated. So when you cut them, you got to cut a wire here, cut a wire here, cut a wire here, and cut a wire here. So when you sync them all together, they're not touching each other when they're bonded. It's a bit of a trick, you know. I wish I didn't have to solder it this way because these things are not the easiest to work with. But that's just what you got to deal with. There you have it. So that is the pickups with the wires removed, okay? And this is why I marked them. So you can see at least worst case scenario, this is pretty obvious now. We got 1 dash here, we got 4 dashes here. So even if we forgot which ones were the center, we'd know that this coil belonged to that coil. So if this one's green, this one has to be red. So it's, you know, it's a little backwards. So this one's going to be the green color. This one's going to be the red color, the new red. And then this one is going to be white, and then this one's going to be black, according to this, okay? And then this right here, all I had to do was just hit the little corner of this, where this was tied over here. It was wound around the ground wire, so it was a little bit hard when I started pulling on it, but so I had to disconnect both of them. But you're going to have a new set of wires anyways. Now, I will tell you this, it is going to be smart for you to cut your wire, insert it through the hole first, and make sure that all of the other cables are protected, because you can pull it out. It's going to be a little bit hard to manipulate it once you get it in there. And this particular wire is a little bit difficult to put through because the sleeve is a little bit thicker than the actual hole. So probably grab some tweezers. You just don't want to have any grounds or shorts, so if it's peeling a little bit of that off. All right. This should be, once I cut those things, that should be enough working room to be able to get the rest of these wires together and splice them. So anyways, that's what we've got. Now we can do a secondary test just to see what these coil outputs are, because we don't need the ground to be able to do this. We can actually just connect this guy. Put this over here. And again, we've got it set to the same. Back this up just a bit. And then what we're going to do, sorry, this thing is kind of on a spring-loaded thing, so it's a little difficult. But we just connect these two together. And just kind of hold them. And there you go. So that is the south coil, which are the screw side. So we're going to take that, and that's 788. Write that down. So that's the south, 7.88. Okay. And then get the wires for these guys. It's for the north side. It doesn't matter right now if you go back and forth. Now, those are really consistent. I mean, they're only a point, a couple, tenths off. So that's 790. So it's a pretty consistent pickup, which is good, because if we split them in a particular order of like outside or inside coils, they're going to be a pretty good volume. So this is 790. And there we go. So we got our output. If we added those numbers up, you get something pretty close to that. Very, very cool. All right, so now that we've got that gone, we're not going to worry about a polarity test right now. We're just going to go ahead and connect these wires, and then do our best to sit there and protect them as far as the soldering the leads, and then rock and roll. Now, I will say this, if you wanted to, because of the way that they did this, you could actually just do a series link with these cables and just have the series link already be done down there. But if you ever wanted to do parallel versus series, or if you want to do a different coil tapping, you would want to have access to all 4 cables later down the road. So this is plenty of length of cable, to wire, bridge or neck, put it into anything. It's going to reach, it's not going to be the longest, but it's enough to do a couple of wraps high on that. So you could make it longer if you needed. I made it at about a foot, so that's probably good for me. So either way. Okay, so we got all of the wires all joined together. I had to cut them back a little bit, but that's okay. If you guys know anything about how old this is, yeah, you know where it's from, and you know how old it is. Pretty cool, right? Still have it. This is the bad stuff. It's got the lead in it, but it's really good. But be careful. It's not good for your breathing. So I'm going to go ahead and just tin these guys. I put some flux on the end of them so they took to the solder real quick. Solid connection. Tin some of this. It'll be easy to connect. Those will be solid connections. Groovy. So the only thing that we need to do now is get this ground wire set there. Okay, that pickup is officially now a 4-conductor pickup. We just gotta, oops, sorry about that. We just gotta fix the ends so we can put them back in the little cavity here, and then we should be good to go. Before we tape it all up, we do need to see if we can test a little bit of this. I really don't like to do that, but you do need to make sure that the connections are solid so you can connect your multimeter and do what you need to do. But that is essentially how you do a 2-wire to a 4-conductor pickup mod. Once you know what the coils are, north and south, and you knew which one is the start, which one is they're gonna, because Ari's gonna have the south start go to the ground. So you just pull those off, and then you have your other south finish, and those south finish and north finish will be tied together, and then the north start, that will be your hot. So that's how you can figure out whatever it is. Even if they're all black wires, if they're all red wires, all white wires, doesn't make any difference. If they're wired together as a single hot and ground, all you have to do is just identify which ones are those, link them to the coils, pick your color code from Dimarzio, Seymour Duncan, whatever you want to do. I suggest writing it down and then just tagging it and then checking the output to make sure that it's exactly what it is when you test it outwards. Because if you get a huge difference in resistance after testing it together, then you're going to have a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and put some heat shrink on these guys, and I just need little bits of it just to protect it, and then we'll wrap this sucker back up, and boom, boom. So you got to kind of give me a little bit of slack. I wouldn't consider myself a pro modder as far as like knowing how to do this stuff. I don't do this stuff every day. I mean, this is like a one-off type thing. Most pickups are already default like this, and most people would just say, screw this pickup, throw it away, and get another set of pickups or whatever. But these are important to me, and I'm doing a lot to them. I'm just showing this mod, but I want to show you if I make a mistake, I just want to point it out. If it's easy, if something is going to be pretty, all I'm trying to basically get to is this shrink tubing. If you put it on there and just shrink it on, it can slide right off. And once you heat it up and it's melted, it won't melt again. And if you're not careful, this thing can get to like 500-600 degrees and you can just melt your pickups like straight up. So you got to be very careful with this. So what I figured out, the best kind of recipe to do is give too much, for both ends and stuff like that. When you're using your heat gun, you do not need to be very long. And then the trick is to get the whole thing to shrink over everything. And once it's pretty much shrunk, quickly just kind of pinch it. Now it will be hot, so don't hold your fingers onto it. I don't want you to hurt yourself. But what this is doing is this is binding everything together. And it's not really hot, but now it becomes almost like electrical tape without the stickiness, because if you try to use electrical tape, it's just going to be a gooey mess by the time you're done with it. So now if I try to pull this off, it's really formed itself like really well. Let's see if I can see that. You see how you can see? Looks like a little penis. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, it's basically, you're not going to be able to pull these things off. So they're good to go. Excuse me. And I got some allergies today. But everything is good to go. And if there's a lot of excess trim on the top of this, like for example this one, we can just snip a little bit of that. But don't get too close because you definitely want to leave a little bit at the end so it's completely sealed and it won't be able to touch anything else. So this one's got a little bit of excess too. We can trim just a little bit of that off. It's easier to do it after the fact. And then these guys are pretty much well set. So anyways, now what we're going to do is essentially try to tuck as much of this stuff in between the pickups as possible. I'm not going to be able to put a lot in there because the string tubing is taking up a little bit of space, but we do need to make sure that we can wrap this thing again and keep it safe. But that's what we are doing. And just kind of do what you can. You know, like I said, this is not probably the best video in the world to watch if you're just into modding pickups and stuff like that. But I'm showing you what I had to do to get it done. And on the cheap. Get all of the other wires there. I should be able to be fine with that if I wrap this. Make sure all the other wires are out of the way. It's a lot of extra wires, but when I wrap this, it should be okay. And again, I'm not worried about the aesthetics of the pickup as long as the wire's out of the way of the screws. So when I mount it on the guitar, it should be fine. Yay. Doesn't look like the same pickup, does it? Yeah, it's all nice and shiny. All the corrosion's gone. All I had to do was just use my trusty white compound buffing wheel. Hold it for a few seconds, back and forth. There you go. That's all you have to do to take a 30-year-old pickup and make it look like that. Brand freaking new. So what I did is I actually used gaff tape, which is like a tape they use in the live sound and audio world and whatever they need it for taping cables. It's not just for live sound, but it's for all sorts of things. But I took a little piece of it. It's really strong, and it looks like the same stuff, to tell you the truth, that came off of it in the first place. I don't know if they actually use gaff tape, but now that I look at it, the pattern looks very similar. So I took a little triangle just to protect the wires from here, and then this stuff is really easy to wrap around. It's very, very strong, but the cool part is it doesn't leave a residue like an electrical tape. So you can wrap this stuff around there, and it's almost got like a cloth that will bind everything. And this thing is awesome. So it's a little bit overkill as far as the amount of wrappings that I put around there, but I just want to put a little cover over the top of that. But that's what it looked like after, and this is what it looked like before. That's a pretty substantial difference with just a buffing wheel. So that's going to look great when I put it back in the guitar. So what we have to do final, just before this thing is ready to be installed and put back together, is I've got to test the wire. So I have to strip a little bit off there. I'm not going to strip. I'm going to try to do as little as I possibly can so I can just test and make sure the output of this is correct. Otherwise, I have spent all this time doing nothing. But it won't be that way because I did it right. Moment of truth. All right. So again, we got the red and the green are supposed to be the coils. So we want to do red and green and make sure that the output is, what was it supposed to be? 788. So let's see what we got here. All right. Oh, you can't see it because that's a freaking glare. That's still a glare. That's better. $792. Okay, so that was the red and the green. So if anything, it went up. Okay, so now we just have to do the black and white. 794. Again, they went up. So I don't know. Maybe the cable itself, which doesn't make any sense because should be more resistance just because there's physically more cable, but I don't know, maybe the quality of the cables, but I don't know. It doesn't make any difference because it's still soldered to the same lead, so whatever. Anyway, so now what we need to do, the series link, which is going to be the red and white together. So we'll go ahead and knock these guys together. I'm going to put the green to the ground. So all we have to do is touch the green and ground, the black, and then the series link is already, as long as let's make sure that it's together. Now we should be, nope. Get these things wrapped together enough to, oh, there we go. Okay, they're held. Okay, so now, if we touch this to the ground and the black to the red, we should be able to get a reading of around 1559, something like that. Again, it went up, but that means it's a total success. It means I was able to mod this thing, retape it, solder it, clean it up, and make it a 4-conductor wire. So that is the procedure to doing that. Same type of deal. Again, just make sure when you're matching these type of things, you make all the lists and stuff like that. But this is how we did it. It's freaking awesome. So I've got another guitar that I did this exact same mod with. It's a little bit sketchy. Sometimes you have to kind of tap it a little bit, which is why I was saying you got to be very careful about finding those extra leads that are cut. That's probably what happened to me the first time, and I just didn't notice it until today. But now you see the video of me doing it, so you can do it too. Rock and roll. There they are. Both nice and polished. I can definitely tell that, look at the size where the, where the screws align. This is definitely a neck pickup, and this is F-spaced. So there is a pretty huge difference as far as the size of these pickups and everything like that, especially when you put them side by side. There's that much of a gap, so yeah, that's pretty substantial. But anyways, they look beautiful. I was going to actually paint them yellow, but since they cleaned up so well, I'm just going to keep them like this. So it was a successful project. Very happy. Now I just got to slice this open, test the wires, and make sure that the output's the exact same as I started. And then we can call this a wrap. We can put those things back. The tremolo has been beautifully buffed, polished, and restored, like all of my other instruments. So this guitar is going to be gorgeous when it comes back, and it's going to be very, very cool. There you have it. That's the original Dimarzio setup. So the outputs of those pickup windings are pretty substantial. So we got 15.59 on the bridge as a full humbucker, and individual coils are 788 and 79. But this one's 4.6 and 4.6 on a total of 901 when I did it. But the resistance went up when I actually put the new wires on and stuff like that. I'm still not sure why it did that. But anyways, they are both exactly the same. So I will have to do the alternate to get this inner coils and outer coils. So when they're flipped like this, I'll be able to split those coils evenly across that. And so that's it. Now, once I knew what I was doing, the second time, obviously, it's pretty obvious for anybody doing projects before. But the modification really only took about 20 minutes, 25 minutes tops to do this mod. So it's longer than the video, or shorter than the video is, because I had to explain it and take the time to do that. But if you know what you're doing, it's not that hard of a project, really not. I would recommend, make sure you got a good soldering iron. I've got one that's I got from Amazon, I think for about 80, 90 bucks. I'll show you real quick, take this thing off the mount. And it's got a great, you just turn it on, it heats up real quick. It's got a really good temperature control. You can slide. I usually keep it around 400. It's got everything you need. It kind of holds its solder. It's got this little mounting thing over here for that. Don't really ever use it. But get yourself some little handy helpers. I think that's what they're called. What else? You need an X-Acto knife. Do some splitting. Get yourself some wire. You can get this stuff, and I think they give you like 20 feet of it or 25 feet of it, and you'll never run out of it unless you do a ton of mods. And that's about it. I think that's all I really needed to get this whole project done. It's color code type thing. This is a really helpful chart. Figure out whatever you want and then just put something together. I made this in Pages on my Mac and just for reference, but now I can keep this, wire it up, and good to go. So I hope this helps, and rock on.